Yep.
Well, that's probably worse.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's 8:30 and I'm calling this Sawyer County Zoning Committee meeting to order. Before we get started here, has everybody filled out an appearance slip on an item they want to speak on?
Working on it.
Okay, when you get them done, just bring them up here, because we're gonna get going here. All right. I call this to order. Can we do a roll call, Pat?
Jesse. Ron.
Here.
Queen.
Yes, sir.
Stacy.
Here.
Michael.
Here.
John.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Number B, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, statement. State of committee hearing and procedures and statement hearing notice. The full statement of committee and hearing procedure documents, including directions for individuals wishing to speak at a public hearing to be conducted at this zoning committee meeting, are available in the front of this room next to the agenda for today's meeting. The statement of committee and hearing procedure document is hereby incorporated into the record for this committee meeting. Any public hearing, any public hearing conducted at today's committee meeting has been published in a Class 2 notice in accordance of Chapter 985 of Wisconsin statutes and the Sawyer County Record and the Sawyer County Gazette as posted. All right, number E, approval of the September 16th, 2022 minutes.
Be number D or letter D.
Huh?
It's fine.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Ms. Hassel to approve. Do we have a second? We have a second by Mr. Schuman to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
The agenda looks a little bit different than that one.
Oh, okay,
That's all.
sorry. All right, we'll do this one. All right, public comment. Please note comment time is intended for the general public comment. Not comments relating to a specific application before this committee. Each agenda item requiring a public hearing will have its public hearing conducted just prior to the application being considered by the committee. If you wish to speak on a specific agenda item, we encourage you to hold your comment at that specific hearing. Okay.
For public comments, first I have Douglas Kurtzwell.
Good morning. I'm Douglas Kurtzweil. Address is 11055W Arrow Road, Hayward, Wisconsin. Zoning is really one of the more important processes or functions of county government. Zoning is important. We have zoning so that we don't wind up with an adult bookstore next to the grade school, a strip joint across the street from the church, a foundry next to a rest home, a residential subdivision next to a CAFO, or a CAFO going in next to a residential subdivision. Zoning can be very contentious and it can make a lot of people unhappy. Public rights versus private rights. And these need to be considered and measured. What I want to caution the committee is as they move forward with a discussion item that actually on the website it's crafted almost like a proposed ordinance amendment. This has all come about because of a decision by a county employee, a non-elected official. And it's gone to court. A judge has rendered a decision, written order put in place. What some people believe is a somewhat questionable appeal has been filed. There was no request for an injunction suspending enforcement of the court's order at the time it was entered. There is no request for an injunction. And again, as you consider changing rules on RR1 districts and how many buildings and how many houses, you're gonna a fairly real risk of almost like playing a game, a legal game, an economic game of Russian roulette with a model 1911. These residential neighborhoods, many of the properties been in families for generations. The peace and quiet of the up north. You're putting all of that at risk if you start allowing the rental of multiple units on RR1 properties. Two-thirds of the county's tax base is residential waterfront property. I have been getting more and more comments and complaints from people as I do my door-to-door work about the impact on their quality of life since the adoption of the Wisconsin right to rent law. Short-term rentals with virtually no supervision are causing upheaval in neighborhoods. And many of these residential neighborhoods are on little dead-end roads, back on points on the lake. Many of these roads are private, and it used to be quiet, and now it's almost like a thoroughfare. So I would ask the committee to be very, very cautious, very careful in their discussion, consideration of these changes. I believe that these changes came from administration rather than a groundswell from the committee itself.
Doug, you want to finish it up?
It's my contention that an error was made that not only conflated the rules, the state statutes on non-conforming structures with the rules on non-conforming uses. That's why I've invested time and treasure in attempting to correct this. And I fear that the committee could be in the process of being manipulated to try to cover up a mistake that would have easily been fixed had it been admitted and acknowledged when it was brought to their attention. Thank you very much.
Next, I have Linda Zolmer. Hmm?
Did we say that the only two?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, 3 minutes, Linda.
Linda Zilmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Edgewater property owner. I'm speaking about adding items to new business, especially substantial ones that have not made it to public notice. And then also the committee's change of longstanding practice to not allow public comment at the time those new business items come up. That's a fairly recent change. So number one is to address what does look like a proposed ordinance amendment. I think there should be public comment allowed on that. And it was not clear that in the notice, even though that one was on the earlier agenda, that you would be talking about that and to what extent. And then this item number 5C, I believe, is that the Edgewater Lake Chautauqua Marina. That application, I think, came here in February, March. And the committee failed to put a date on when it could come back by. And then this summer, the committee extended to November, which is pretty much amounting to ongoing extension and not allowing property owners the ability to know for sure when that was be heard. So I would encourage the committee to deny any further extension and request that the applicant resubmit the application, and this time with full information. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
That's all I have for slips. If you want to call for it though, if there's any additional public comment.
Okay, is there any additional public comment out there that people want to speak on? Okay,
And seeing no hands online, we'll move into our rezone application. First is public hearing, the town of Meteor, rezone number 22-014, owner Seth and Ashley Zessiger, northeast 1/4, the southeast 1/4, and the northwest 1/4 of the southeast 1/4, all in section 11, township 37 north, range 8 west, parcel 018-837-114101. This request is to rezone all 80 acres of forestry 1 land to agricultural 1. And this is to have additional pasture land for farming. As part of the staff report, again, the request is to rezone 80 acres of forestry 1 to agricultural 1. The applicant is requesting to do this and that it would meet all zone district requirements. This is required in order to expand existing pasture land for an existing farming operation. Town of Meteor comprehensive plan shows this area as future forestry with a mixing of zoning districts between Ag 1 and F1 with similar uses occurring. The town of Meteor has also approved the proposed rezone request. The USDA NRCS web soil survey shows about a third of this area of farmland of statewide importance, while keeping in mind that this additional acreage is primarily to be used for pasture land. Again, per the town board, motion was approved. Dale Olson, chairman. Mr. Welling, supervisor, Zach White, supervisor. No additional comments. Signed, Clarence Frey, town clerk. The applicant is not available here this morning, but I do have a letter I'd like to read into record. Dear members of the committee, I'm writing in regards to the application of the change in zone district for our property. The parcel numbers as previously read. The purpose of the application is to change the property classification from F1 to A1. The property was clear cut in 2021 and in 2022, and construction of a 3-strand barbed wire fence was started in 2021, completed in late summer 2022, in order to add additional pasture land for beef cattle to the family farm. The property contains approximately 1 acre of former hay ground, while the rest is recently cut over. There are photos that were submitted within the packet. The terrain typically of the area is level to rolling and is a classic kettle moraine. The property under consideration is bordered on 3 sides of the property that is currently zoned agricultural 1. Surrounding property development is either pasture land, cropland, or productive forest. There are approximately 150 properties within that section that are currently zoned agricultural 1. My family and I currently pasture beef cows and grow crops on the family farm east of the directly adjacent to the property under the consideration of this application. Given the information above, I believe the change of zone district as requested of my property would be both compatible with the surrounding land uses and appreciated. Thank you for your consideration, Seth Zessiger. There were 6 other opinion letters sent out, 0 were returned.
all right. Need a motion to go into a public hearing on rezone number 22-014.
Motion.
Okay, we have a
I'll
motion
second that.
by Mr. Schuman and a second by Ms. Hessel to go into public hearing on rezone number 22-014. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now in public hearing. You don't even want to speak.
I don't.
Okay. Is there anybody out there that want to speak in favor of this rezone? Is there anybody out there that wants to speak in opposition of this rezone? Okay, not. Need a motion to come out of public.
Chairman.
Okay,
You don't even get to say.
no, that's okay. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Schuman. Do we have a second? We have a second by Mr. Reheimer to come out of public hearing on rezone number 22-014. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action for rezone number 22-014, owner Seth and Ashley Zessiger. Legal description is previously read into record. This request is to rezone 80 acres of forestry 1 to agricultural 1 to add additional pasture land for farming.
Go ahead, Mr. Schuman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve this rezone with the finding of facts for approval, 1 through 9. Was there anything in your staff report, Gene, that you wanted conditions? Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the rezone. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Schuman and a second by Mr. Geimer to approve the rezone number 22-014. Any more discussion? If not, Pat, can we have a roll call, please?
Stacy,
Yes.
Tweed,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor, motion is
Motion
approved.
approved.
Moving on, this is the public hearing in the town of Edgewater, conditional use permit number 22-015. Owner Knapp Miller Family Trust, part of government lot 6, section 19, township 37 north, range 9 west, parcel 008-937195605. Total acres of 46.92 acres zoned agricultural 1 and residential recreational 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone approximately 4.85 acres of the property to commercial 1 for recreational vehicle storage. This would be a non-structural storage on open land and only storing but not limited to boats, pontoons, and off-road recreational vehicles. As per the staff report, again, the request is to rezone approximately 4.85 acres of a split zone parcel. This would be of Ag 1 and RR1 to C1. The proposed rezone would result in conforming zone district dimensional requirements. The purpose of the request would then be to have a permitted use for commercial storage within a commercial 1 zone district. At this time, the owners of the property had indicated would be for open storage only. But if and when a property is zoned commercial, any permitted use within the zone district could occur, including commercial storage buildings or mini warehouse storages. And again, this committee could not make that a condition as part of a legislative rezone act. As part of the additional maps in the packet, the nearest C1 zone property in relation to this is approximately 680 feet away to the south along the State Highway 48 corridor. The future land use map of the town of Edgewater shows this area as shoreland, which is just indicating of a 1,000-foot buffering around water bodies, which is part of the town comprehensive plan, still references the old lake classification system. There are a few other residential structures within the immediate area, specifically west of the subject property. The zoning department received notification last year that the owners of the property were storing other boats and trailers over the winter in this location and would only be able to do so if this was zoned to a commercial 1 zone district. There were 26 opinion letters sent out for notification. None of those were returned. At the town board meeting, motion was approved. Pete Baraboo, chairman, Scott Space, supervisor, Jamie Scar, supervisor. Motion by Pete to approve the rezone request to C1 for storage of recreational vehicles. Seconded by Scott, carried 3-0, signed Natalie Clemens, town clerk. That is all.
Okay, Jay, I got a question. We're talking rezone, but here it says CUPs.
Oh, that would be an error from what Kathy said, but it is for a rezone and it's in the
Okay, I just
rezone.
I want to
portion.
make sure everybody's aware that's what this is. Okay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone number 22-015.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Hessel to go into public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And then a second by Mr. Righeimer to go into public hearing on rezone number 22-015. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Is anybody here from the Knapp Miller that wants to talk in this?
I do have one from a Robert Knapp-Miller wishing to speak in favor.
Robert Van Miller, M131, Nayland Road, Birchwood, Wisconsin. I am a member of the Namler Family LLC. And the property in question is a reclaimed gravel pit that has been reclaimed for over 20 years. Surrounded by our property, the family owns property. I have some pictures, aerial views of the property itself. Which is like the committee to take in consideration for our family. Thank you.
Nope, that was all we had for public hearing slips.
Okay, is there anybody else out there that would like to speak in favor of this rezone? Hey, any hands up, Mike. Go ahead. Is anybody out there that wants to speak in opposition of this rezone? Okay, if not, need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number 22-015.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs.
Second.
Hessel, second by Mr. Schuman to come out of public hearing on rezone number 22-015. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, the town of Edgewater, rezone number 22-015, owner Knapp Miller Family Trust. Legal description is previously read into record. This request would be to rezone a portion of agricultural 1 and RR1 residential recreational 1 to approximately 4.85 acres of commercial 1 for recreational vehicle storage.
I make a motion, we approve based on 1 through 9 findings.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Regenheimer to approve and a second by Ms. Hessel to approve this rezone number 22-015. Any more discussion?
Yes,
Go ahead,
I
Mr.
just got-
Schuman.
Jay, is this compatible with? I think you mentioned there's commercial property, you see one property.
To the
nearby?
south, yeah, I actually have it up on the map right now. So that the pink cross hatch area, that is commercial 1 zone district. So approximately 600 feet away, immediately to the south of the land or the parcel that they already own, there is a stretch of commercial zone district along that State Highway 48 corridor. As not to be viewed as spot zoning.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any more discussion? Not that, we do roll call, please.
Michael,
Yes.
Tweed,
Yes,
Stacy,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to conditional use permit applications. This is the public hearing in the town of Cooterray, conditional use permit number 22-030. Owner Chad and Gail Colstead, part of government lot 3, lot 5 with CSM number 8438. Parcel 004-839-085309, zone forestry 1 and residential recreational 2. 4.0 total acres. This request is a permit desired to build up to a 240 square foot deck for a camper per section 4.26 parent 1 with automatic conditions. Those would include building of a primary dwelling within 3 years. As part of the staff request, again, this request is to allow for up to a 240 square foot wooden deck in association with a camper. Our office received notification of this camper deck earlier this year. This type of structure would be classified as an accessory structure and would require permits, but would also only be allowed on a property that contains a primary dwelling or prior approval of conditional use permit to be granted for a 3-year time frame in which they would need to build a primary dwelling. In conversations with the applicant, they are not ready to build a primary dwelling yet, but would like to use the property for camping for up to the next 3 years, in which then they would plan on building a primary dwelling on the property, and that deck would be utilized in that new primary dwelling. If the CUP was approved, a land use permit would still be required with double permit fees. If the CUP is denied, an order for correction letter for removal will be drafted with a date for removal of January 1 of 2023. No other provisions of the current Sawyer County zoning ordinance would allow for decks on campers on vacant land that are not within a licensed campground. Per the town board, motion was approved. James Bassett, chairman, Jeffrey Honuth, supervisor. No additional comments. Signed, Charlie Warner, town clerk. I do have. There were 6 opinion letters sent out. None were returned. Because this property is within the shoreland district, the DNR submitted comments. Department's only comment is to ensure any proposed structure associated with the conditional use permit would meet the 75-foot ordinary high water mark setback and follow other shoreline wetland protection ordinances. And the current location of that deck does meet the required setbacks. That is all.
Okay, thank you. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 22-030. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Righeimer and a second by, I'll second that. To go into public hearing on rezone number 22-030. Okay, is the Colsteads here? State your name and address, please.
Yeah, I'm Chad Colstead. I'm the property owner of 14010 West Triangle. I just like the committee to consider us keeping the deck there for a few years. We have elderly parents that come up in the summer. And it just provides some more level surface for them to be there and be present. So I just appreciate your consideration.
Sir, so you plan to build a dwelling then within the next 3 years?
Yes,
On the site?
yes.
It's a beautiful deck.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Should call one more time. Anyone else in favor? And then I'll go to this one.
Okay, is everyone in favor that wants to speak in favor of this rezone? Okay, is there anybody out there that wants to speak in opposition to this? Oh, CUP, sorry.
I do have one from Linda Zilmer. You want me to read your comments or you want to?
3 minutes, Linda.
Linda Zolmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Edgewater property owner. And I think the county ordinance, which this committee is, I think, responsible for enforcing, is clear that that in order to maybe do an accessory building, the requirement is to apply for the land use permit and promise to build within 2 years, and then there's a 1-year extension. Is that correct?
Not quite. I mean, you'd have to be granted the conditional use permit. Once you're granted the conditional use
Right.
permit, starts a 3-year clock in which you need to apply for a land use permit to build the primary dwelling. That land use permit then has a 12-month clock with a 6-month extension.
Thank you. And so I think that for this situation, the applicant should comply with your ordinance. And I think to grant a CUP without that is opening a floodgate. Recently, the committee spent several months deciding that storage structures could be allowed on vacant land. But there was some discussion, well, would that include decks? And specifically, that was excluded. The intent of the committee when you amended your ordinance not that long ago was only to provide for storage structures and not decks. And the question was asked from a member of the public. So I think also in light of that ordinance amendment, not to approve this as a CUP just to allow the deck, but to require the applicant to follow the ordinance and start the process towards building. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else out there would like to speak in opposition of this CUP? Okay, if not, need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 22-030.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Schuman, second by Ms. Hessel to come out of public hearing on CUP number 22-030. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, Town of Coudray, conditional use permit number 22-030, owner Chad and Gail Colstead. Legal description is previously read into record. Again, this permit is desired to section 4.26 parent 1 to keep the 240 square foot deck being used and associated with camping. with automatic conditions as specified in the staff reports. I will kind of at least go on record and state that this is the first request that we've seen for something like this. If this committee remembers, we did see one other deck platform that was used in association with a yurt. We approved that a few months back. We heard one other conditional use permit for what we'd call a camper port, where someone built a kind of a lean-to structure over a camper. That one was ultimately denied. So I mean, if we go down the route of approving decks on campers, we'd have to do it one of two ways. One is, go through the conditional use permit clause, which it does allow for. That may not have been the intent of it, though, I'll admit, but it does still allow for it as how the ordinance is written. But also, if we're going to start, allowing decks on campers, we probably should look at another ordinance amendment change in the future, unless we, this are just unique circumstances where we're only allowing them for the 3 years to be out there, and then they gotta build. But it is a little bit of a slippery slope that we start going down, that if we're gonna start approving cups for decks on campers, we should probably look at an ordinance amendment or not allow them at all. And that's really something as a policy decision for this committee.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for Jay.
Go ahead.
So Jay, this, because it's a camper outside of a campground,
Correct,
correct? Otherwise, we have ordinances.
correct.
Got it.
I guess, Jay, I would like to hear Mr. Phillips's opinion on this too also. Okay. Andy, Mr. Phillips, can we have your opinion on this, just so we're going down the right trail here?
Yeah, I talked, and good morning, everybody. Excellent. It's great to be with you. I talked at length with Jay about this particular application. I think it's appropriate in this circumstance to view this as a request for a CUP with the requirement that we have in 4.26 sub 1 that, of course, they build within 3 years. If the applicant and if the application is granted, the permit holder doesn't build within the 3 years, of course, there would be a citation in order to remove. And so I think that it's entirely within this committee's purview to grant that conditional use permit if you decide that the factors that are delineated in the report are met in terms of its evidence supporting the application, supporting the granting of that permit. So I think that that's consistent with the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, I got one question for Andy.
Go ahead.
Andy, do you also feel that an amendment to the ordinance is in order then too? Or what do you think of that?
I don't know. It's a tough one because I mean, it's at some point you have trying to catch all the circumstances. I think if the committee feels that it would be better to amend the ordinance to put the public on notice of exactly what is going to be required or desired in terms of this committee's review, that would be appropriate. So I think you can certainly give that sort of direction to Mr. Kozlowski, and he and I can work on putting together some language for the committee's consideration if you think that'd be helpful.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. We're in discussion and action. So committee, I'm turning it over to you. Your recommendation too.
If I'm asked my recommendation, as long as the applicant was, able to build within the 3-year time frame, we do track all these conditional use permits as subject to 4.26 parent 1. We've had one individual that got right up to the deadline and was able to make concessions to get the project moving. I don't believe there's any ill will intent on this applicant. I do have a little fearful moment that this will have others going this route. There's a lot of campers out there, and people are wanting to make those more, permanent sites with their campers, whether that's a deck addition, then it's a screen porch, and then it's a shed. And now all of a sudden they have their property made and they have no intents of building a cabin because they already have a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 investment out there. why remove that to build a $300,000 house? So there's a little bit of a slippery slope. But again, with this specific case, and you do have to look at each specific case uniquely and on its own merits, I would make a recommendation for approval.
I have a question. The conditions for approval, were those your recommendations, the 1 through 4, or these are generic?
So those are mine. Now you can add or delete from that. Now section 4.26 parent 1 does have automatic conditions. And that would be for that the applicant would need to submit and be granted a land use permit within 3 years of today's date to build the primary dwelling. Now, that would not be a condition that this committee could say, no, we're not gonna, we don't care if you ever build. That's an automatic condition that's written in
Number
the
2 is
ordinance.
automatic. I'd like to make a
Correct.
motion to approve this on the conditions for approval 1 through 4, and findings 1 through 9.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Righeimer. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Righeimer and a second by Ms. Hessel to approve the CUP number 22-030. Any more discussion?
Yes, sir, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Jay, did this landowner come to you requesting a CUP, or did I hear you say you had noticed a camper in the on a vacant lot?
Right. I believe it was through a combination of our sanitation department. And that the applicant took out a privy permit, and during the privy permit inspection, the deck was found or seen, which triggered at least having some type of corrective actions, whether it was grantal of a conditional use permit, potential ordinance amendment changes to allow or to have it removed. Yes, the applicant has been very negotiable with us and wanting to do the right thing, though.
Sure.
Okay.
And one more for
Go ahead.
clarification, Jay, is it the size of the deck that's affecting here? It could have been a smaller deck that would not have brought it.
Not necessarily, not how the current ordinances are written. When we made the ordinance amendment change earlier this year to allow for storage sheds on vacant land up to 144 square foot, it just went in as a storage shed. It excluded decks. And decks, per ordinance definitions, are considered structures, more specifically considered accessory structures, and accessory structures are not allowed on vacant land. So it's kind of that wheel that keeps going around. Now, even if you were to have outside of a 4x4 platform off of the bottom of the stairs, even 100 square foot deck would still be requiring the same either conditional use permit or order for removal. Again, is how the current ordinance reads.
And you'd have to follow all setbacks.
Yep.
Easements, right away is lake shore.
Yep.
Okay.
I think Andy
Mr.
had one.
Mr. Chair, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
go
thank-
ahead, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. Couple of points, just to elaborate on what Jay just said. If you look at the definition of structure and the items within 59,692, the Shorelands Code, decks are included in there. So I just wanted to confirm that that's grounded in state statute as well. Second, I just wanted to point out there's a minor typo in item 3 on the conditions for approval, that the word me, should be meet, MEET. Let's make sure that the record reflects that word.
Where?
Possible condition number 3, proposed accessory structure
Oh, meet.
must meet all other
Oh, yeah.
zoning conservation requirements, including setbacks.
What's meal?
Meal,
Okay.
Prove what that is, right, Mr. Ringheimer?
that's correct.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, if not, we've got that change in there, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Roll call, Pat, please.
Tweed,
You're killing me, man. Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
John. Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Moving on, this is a public hearing, the town of Edgewater, conditional use permit number 22-031, owner John Logier Trust, agent Kevin Logier. part of government lot 2, section 19, township 37 north, range 9 west, parcel 0089371952110. Property is zoned residential recreational 1. It is 2.57 total acres. Permit is desired for a kayak rental business of up to from 8 to 10 kayaks, and also a private park with 3 sites to park at and use a picnic table. No overnight stays. This would be per section 17.2, parent B, parent 3, and parent 16 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. As per my staff report, again, this request is for 8 to 10 kayak rentals, including a private park with 3 sites to park and use picnic tables as a day camp with no overnight stays. As section 17.2, parent B, parent 3 would read, that I would find this to be as a recreational service oriented use. The committee should have discussion if they would also see a kayak rental business as a recreational service oriented use. But also section 16, which would allow for public and private parks. And that is where I kind of used those 2 portions of the ordinance to process this request. That the private park would be for the kind of picnic camp areas. Again, the applicant is requesting to operate a kayak rental business on Birch Lake. This is the narrows between Lake Chetek and Birch Lake. That would also have sites available for picnic areas. This type of request would fall under that I would feel it falls under a recreational service oriented use. In conversations with the applicant and the attached additional information provided by the applicant, there would be approximately 9 kayaks available for rental. There would be no overnight camping of any aspects of a campground would be prohibited in this location. This would include any campers where the owner was given financial compensation. This would also include the provisions of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance section 6.73, where any guest units may not exceed 14 days per calendar year for camping equipment. The anticipated rental dates would be only during the summer months. There would be sanitation facilities available on site located in an existing grandfathered mobile home that exists on the property. As part of some of the conditions that I had laid out in my staff report, that restroom facilities must be available to guests of the private park. This may include additional portable restroom facilities if determined necessary by the Sawyer County Zoning Committee. No overnight camping of any kind. The private park is limited to 3 separate areas max, that all dock and pier placements must comply with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources pier planner regulations. That business operation, including park rental areas, may only be conducted from April 1st to November 1st from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. This conditional use permit to be only granted with the current owner of the property. If a new owner is wanting to continue such use, a new CUP must be applied for, and to follow all other state, federal, county, and town regulations. As by action of the town board, motion was approved. Pete Baraboo, chairman, Scott Spaeth, supervisor, Jamie Scar, supervisor, signed Natalie Clements, town clerk. The department weighed in. The department's only comment is to ensure any proposed structures associated with the conditional use would meet the 75-foot ordinary high water mark setback. There were 9 opinion letters sent out, 0 were returned. That is all.
Okay, all right. I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 22-031.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Schuman, second by Mr. Righeimer to go into public hearing on CUP number 22-031. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now in public hearing on CUP number 22-031.
And first up I have is the owner, Kevin Lozier.
My name is Kevin Lozier and I reside at 1237 North County Road F in Birchwood. And I am the applicant, and I just wanted to attend to answer questions and clarify anything that the committee wishes to ask.
Do you want to ask any questions? Mr. Maestri?
I'm good.
Okay. that all you got for this?
For in favor, I do a more proposition.
Okay.
I think it's
Is there any more that would like to speak in favor of this CUP? Go ahead, Linda. Minutes.
Linda Zolmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Edgewater property owner and also a longtime customer of Mr. Lozier's father. Pretty familiar with the site. It might seem limiting as far as kayak rental, but this is a very narrow channel. And generally boats must wait. You can't get two boats side by side to get through that channel. So having a kayak rental business there most likely needs to be limited in size. And also with the topography there is limited parking and it's mostly there adjacent to the outbuilding. In maybe 4 or 5 cars and backing out and things, it gets a little bit tough. So the site is really a limiting factor in how much activity could be there. I believe that the kayak rental business would be appropriate for that site. I am concerned though, and if I might just make my comments in opposition with another couple, extend a minute or two, is that the site, the property has already been advertised as a campground since last summer. And I don't know, I think the Sawyer County zoning ordinance is pretty clear what a campground is. This site does not meet the requirements of that. And to say it's a day camp, that's not defined. I see more than 3 sites. So if you would consider, well, first of all, I'm not in favor of allowing camping or rental of park sites. But if you do consider it, please limit it to 3 because you will have parking concerns with both the kayak rental and those people that are using the property as a park for the day. So please limit that, again, primarily due to site conditions. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just make a clarification. The 3 sites are listed on here. The table may be difficult to read, but there's the 1, 2, 3 sites. The other boxes are parking areas that were kind of described by the applicant.
Okay, is there anybody else out there that wants to speak in favor of this rezone? Is there anyone out there that wants to speak in opposition of this rezone?
Yes, I have Stacy Safford.
Good morning. I'm Stacy Safford. I own the property west of Mr. Lozier's property. I live at S7256 Sunrise Drive in Fall Creek, Wisconsin, and building a permanent residence at 1249 Northwest Robin Lane in Birchwood, Wisconsin. I received in the mail on September 25th a request for my opinion on a condition use permit for Mr. Lozier. However, after doing a quick internet search, it appears that this business, Lozier at the Narrows, has already been running, and according to Kevin's website, www.loziersathenarrows.com, there was an inaugural kayak event on August 6, 2022, and an annual event scheduled for August 5th, 2023. There has been money donated by Birch Lakes Resorts, and the town of Edgewater received a community award for $1,000. There's even a request on the website to obtain sponsors for the kayak race. It appears to me there is already a conflict of interest as Birch Lakes is profiting off of more business and the town of Edgewater has been gifted money. In the condition use permit, it states there will be 8 to 10 kayak rentals, 3 sites to park, and use of picnic table. However, in his website, which was updated August 6, 2022, there is a day campsite reservation on the website to secure your spot in 2023. However, this is on hold at this time. This day camp was not mentioned in the public hearing notice sent out to neighbors. In the online photo from Kevin's website, there's a picture of 25 people that participated in the August 5th, 2022 inaugural kayak event. I purchased my property in February 2022 from Kevin's brother, John Lozier. There was never a disclosure of a new business that was going to be operated from the neighboring property. As a new landowner, I can only assume that this will be a growing event and what appears to be turning into a campground. I have many questions, including what are the hours of operation, including day camping? Are there bathroom facilities being built, which I think you alluded to already? Is there insurance to cover any liabilities this may add to the property owner and potential neighbors? What are you as a county going to do when overnight campers are observed or noise complaints? The Narrows is a very congested area with heavy boat traffic. While I am not opposed to kayaking, this area could become unsafe for boaters, kayakers, and swimmers. This is a no-wake zone. However, this is not patrolled, and I have seen numerous violations in the short time that I have owned the property. There are frequent bass fishing tournaments taking place, boaters and jet skis, all trying to get under a 15-foot bridge clearance, which is one-way traffic to enter either Big Shatak or Birch Lake. With the addition of a kayak business and more people adding to congestion, what services such as DNR and local sheriff will you add and support for patrol?
Excuse me, ma'am, but you want to finish it up?
Yep, this is a lake safety issues. Appears to not be well thought out, and that the cart has been placed ahead of the horse, as I'm now being solicited on what my thoughts are on this development after it appears to be in operation. The town of Edgewater has already made their decision on this. I just want to say that I will be a taxpayer providing, and this may affect my property value as a neighboring
Okay,
taxpayer.
ma'am, we got a few more to do, so.
Can I finish my? I question why this is just being brought forth to you now, as it's happening already. Maybe it's because he needs to obtain sponsorship from outside businesses to run a legit business or a tax ID number, or the township not being able to accept funds from an illegitimate business.
Okay, ma'am, that's enough. We've heard enough. Thank you. Okay, is there any more out there that wants to speak in opposition of this CUP?
I have questions
Go
for
ahead.
Mr. Lozier again.
Go
Is
ahead.
that okay, Chairman?
Yes.
Sir, can you come back up here, please? Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
correct? What are the restroom facilities you're planning to have there?
Well, after speaking to Jay, I admit I hadn't thought through that yet, but I have inquired about porta pots being placed there for people to use. I have really no intent to use that trailer as a restroom. I have family who come and occasionally want to go fishing and still use the trailer, so I don't see that I could do both. So I was intending to bring porta pots in.
And I guess, I don't know if this is for you or Jay. Jay, is there any occupancy limits on these separate sites? I mean, we say there's 3 separate sites.
Right. It
Will
would be,
100 people sit on one site?
I guess that would be something you would want to, put in as part of a condition. Again, whether something's classified as day camping, which there really isn't any definition. I spoke with our health department, but had conversations with DADCAP as to, do they have a definition of day camp? They don't, and it wouldn't be something that DADCAP would would regulate, as long as there was no overnight camping. So if someone wants to, pitch up a screen tent and have a picnic, that would be something that would fall under, the lines of a private park, and that that this private park would have 3 sites. But that probably is something that, this committee does want to set as a condition for the total number of patrons, occupants, whatever you want to call them, to be allowed on site at any time.
What are your thoughts, Mr. Lozier? How many people do you see at each site?
Well, I mentioned in my letter that I don't think there's any more than 18 that would ever occupy.
One site?
Yes, well, no, the total.
Oh.
6 per site. When this all started, there was a lot of interest, there still is a lot of interest in kayak. It's a natural site for kayak. And it is true, as my neighbor mentioned, that bridge is kind of a funnel spot. But it is a no-wake zone. There's kayakers all over the lake. You look around the lake, there's 40 kayaks on shores now. There's a lot of interest in having a kayak regatta, which would be good, I think, for everybody. That's why I went ahead with the inaugural race, and there was 25 people on my property. And we safely had 9 kayakers go around Birch Lake, and we had the event. And I wasn't trying to, you know, get away with anything, but I thought it was important if we were gonna move forward on the idea of developing kayaking in that area, and it's gonna develop whether we want it to or not, I think. There's enough interest in kayaking and paddleboarding and those types of water sports. So I thought this was a great idea to get involved in the community and do something that could develop in something for everybody. I understand Stacy's concerns, but there's kayaks going up and down the channel now, all summer long. So that's my thing.
The concern to me doesn't seem like it's the kayaks, it's the camping. So-
Yeah, the website has been modified and changed. All the mention of camping has been taken out. When I spoke to Jay and realized that, you know, that was not going to be permitted, that website's been changed. So the only mention now on the website is of the event, the kayak adventure event. I'm waiting on permission and my permits before I rented anything. No money's been collected other than what was collected from Birch Lakes Resort to sponsor the first event. And it's on the website. There's pictures of,
And I have it pulled up right now.
yeah, there's pictures of what happened.
So this is different than the website had read even a few weeks ago,
Yes.
where it said, you know, camping, day camp, kayak rentals. That language was removed. I can see that right away.
So is that something you, I don't want to be a cynic, but is that something you monitor? So if we approve the CUP and if he puts camping.
I guess I'm not gonna necessarily monitor a website, but if I have reports that people are camping overnight, that's a direct violation and would result in citations. Because this would not be permitted as a campground. That would be for any overnight guests or any kind of camping equipment, and Kevin and I have discussed that as well.
And as I mentioned to Jay, there is a site for a camper there that my cousin has used the 14 days that he's allowed.
Mhm.
And the only other, some of my cousins come up and use the grandfather trail. But that's why I said no overnight camping. I don't want to turn the place into a camp. I just want to rent the kayaks and develop kayak adventure and see where it goes.
Yeah, so we can make that as a condition too, also, right, Jay?
Mhm.
In our motion,
For the number at each site, is that what you're saying?
number at each site and then no overnight camping.
Yes,
You agreeable to that?
I'm 100% agreeable.
And what is your number per site? You mentioned six.
6%.
Six people per site.
18.
So if you got a family of 12, they gotta take 2 sites.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else out there who'd like to speak in opposition to this? Okay, if not, need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 22-031.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Ringheimer and a second by Mr. Schuman to come out of public hearing on rezone number 22-031. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This is the discussion action.
Oh, excuse me, Jay. Motion carries.
This is the discussion action, the town of Edgewater conditional use permit number 22-031. Owner John Lozier Trust, agent Kevin Lozier. Legal description is previously read into record. This request is subject to section 17.2 parent B, parent 3, and parent 16 for a kayak rental business, 8 to 10 kayaks, and private park with up to 3 sites to use for a park and picnic area. When going through this, kind of keep in mind the, conditions and generally, the reason why we put, conditions on conditional use permits is ultimately to mitigate some of the concerns that the neighbors may have, that this committee may have, that the zoning administrator may have, that the towns may have. And we heard from the applicant that he was agreeable to these conditions as well as the additional one, and that being the 18 patrons total. So I think in any discussion and or actions that you make, we should probably go back through the conditions and look specifically as to what we want to keep on there and what we may want to add. We heard about potential sanitation issues and whether or not this committee wants to make it a condition that portable restroom facilities be available. Again, that's, the private park with the 3 sites, not to exceed 18 total patrons. So keep those in mind when making your decisions.
Okay, committee? Any? Anyone?
Well, I guess I would, Chairman. I'll make a motion to approve with the possible conditions that are listed here. Maybe Jay, I want you to clarify the restroom facilities for me, that there be more than just what he's talking about with that trailer there.
Yeah, so
Can you help me with that?
when I had a conversation with Mr. Lozier, he said that he may be able to offer, bathroom facilities in the existing trailer. We heard from him today that, family members still use that mobile home trailer that exists on the property. I would make it a condition that other, restroom facilities be available in the form of portable restroom units.
I agree. That's
Now,
one of my.
if the owner, if this thing comes to be that, each site is being rented out, every week or every weekend during the summer, and a portable restroom unit is getting too cost prohibitive, if he wants to put in his own, privy and other compliant sanitation requirements, I don't think he needs to come back in, but as a minimum, have a separate portable restroom unit.
Agree. That's one of my conditions.
Okay. We heard from the
Amended
applicant, they
one.
were agreeable to the 18 total
Yes,
patrons.
I would like to add that to number 3.
Okay.
Limited to 3 separate areas with a maximum of 18 occupants.
Okay, and then we can look at all the other ones, which again, number 2 would be no overnight camping.
Agree.
3, which Tweed just alluded to, 3 separate areas max with a max of 18 total patrons. And that all dock and pier regulations are complied with Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, that the business operation be from April 1st to November 1st, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., that the conditional use permit is only granted to the current owner of the property, and any future owners would need to basically renew said conditional use
That's a
permit.
standard condition, right? That a new owner would renew.
It is and isn't. We've been putting it in more, and maybe Andy Phillips can talk about that. It's not necessarily a standard, but I think for this type of scenario, I think we would want to limit it to the current property owner.
I agree.
And before Andy jumps in to kind of clarify that, and then the other one that's somewhat cookie cutter, and I put in all of them, that all other federal, state, and county town regulations be complied with.
No, I would agree with all those, and with the amended 1 and 3. And then the finding of facts for approval 1 through 9.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Okay. You want Andy to talk?
Well, let's wait until we potentially have a second.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Schuman to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and then we have a second by Mr. Righeimer
And
to approve CUP number 22-031.
And then during that discussion for that motion, Andy, can you allude to current property owner versus future property owner on cups?
Yeah, that was part of the Act 67 changes that came in about, 5-6 years ago, where a cup runs with the land absent any sort of expiration that's imposed either by ordinance or by the committee. 59.69 sub 5E, I think it is. And so it is always advisable that if we do not want this permit to be transferred to any sort of successor owner, that we make that a condition within the CUP. So the way that it reads now as it relates to item number 6 on the report, that's exactly the way to do it.
Perfect. So if it's not discussed, then it's in perpetuity with the land. If it is discussed, then you can make it a condition per the current owner. Like, is that right?
Yeah, and I don't want to make it so black and white on that, because I think there are still arguments about expiration, again, depending upon the unique situation. But as a general rule, Jay, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve 22-031. Any more discussion?
Can I just make sure I have the conditions? correct?
Yes,
Can I
you
reread
can.
those? So restroom facilities must be available to guests at the private park. This must include additional portable restroom facilities if determined necessary by Sawyer County Zoning Committee or
Which they did.
compliant pouch.
Yep.
And the second one was the private park is limited to 3 separate areas, maximum 18 occupants.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep, that's in addition to the other
Addition to
conditions
the
listed
other-
in the staff report. Yep.
Yeah, and the findings of facts, 1 through 9.
Got it all, Pat?
I have it.
All right, if there's no more discussion, roll call.
Stacy,
Yes,
Ron,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Tweed,
Yes.
John.
Motion carries.
Do you want to go into the next one right away? Maybe long,
No, let's do a
Take a bathroom break.
break, yeah.
5 minute?
5 minutes.
Space in school, so I can actually get a sandwich. during my lunch with all the kids.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
We're going back into session here in zoning.
All right, this is the public hearing, the title entry, conditional use permit number 22-028. Owner Larry Kim and Larry and Kim Vermisio, part of the northeast 1/4, the northwest 1/4, section 12, township 41 north, range 9 west. Parcel 014-941-122106, tax ID 41961. It is 22.28 total acres, zoned residential recreational 2. Permit is desired for Hayward Property Owner LLC to develop and operate a seasonal RV park and campground tailored to short-term and long-term tourist housing, short-term and long-term tourist, 84 total sites, including 8 camping cabins, is what is being requested as part of my staff reports. Again, this is the proposed development to operate a seasonal RV campsite, 84 total sites, including 8 camping cabins. This request would also include an ATV snowmobile rental business. These requests are per section 17.3, parent B, parent 1, and parent 3 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. In the attached maps included within this packet, you'll see the proposed campground layout. The campground layout must meet all minimum standards as specified in section 6.6 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance and Wisconsin State Chapter ATCP 79 for campground regulations, which it currently does. If the campground layout is to change, a new map must be placed on file with the Sawyer County Zoning Conservation Department and approval of the Sawyer County Zoning Committee. The current request shows 84 total sites, including 8 camping cabins, which are defined in the zoning ordinance. In addition to the 84 sites, there would also be a lodge check-in area, a bathhouse, a canine camp dog park area, and small storage buildings. This request also comes with the potential rental of ATVs and or snowmobiles out of the main lodge office and the storage buildings that would be on site. This type of use would be also require the granting of a conditional use permit for a recreational service oriented use. The campsite layout in general is focused around the man-made pond, which the zoning department would view as a 40-foot wetland setback as opposed to a 75-foot ordinary high watermark setback. Man-made ponds do not have specific setbacks as listed as part of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. The remaining sites would be set at the other minimum setback distances of 75 feet from other surrounding property lines. The nearest designated site to a residential structure is immediately to the east and is approximately 120 feet away. As part of my potential conditions, which I think I'm going to end up going over during discussion action as opposed to right now. Unless you want me to go over them both times.
No,
Okay.
No,
once is enough.
So
And we could
this,
read them too, Jay, but.
yeah, perfect. So there was quite a bit of opposition that we received on this. Majority of those letters were sent to the committee. We do have a few late that came in, which I do want to read and put into record. Before I read those, has the committee had a chance to read those that were previously distributed to you?
Yes.
Okay. So then I do have a stack of ones that weren't distributed to you because they came in as of yesterday and even this morning. Before I get into those, I want to look at the town board because the town did have some changes that they had made. Action by the town board was approved. Gordy Christian's chair, Jack Schustrom supervisor, Jason Schustrom supervisor, Michael Bandro supervisor, Ronald Poppy supervisor. Chairman Christian's made a motion to approve the conditional use permit with the following conditions. For the KOA on the north side shall have a 150-foot setback going south from the Orville Senior and Carol Stone south property line and the Darlene Judd south property line. KOA agreed to eliminate 11 units on the north side. KOA shall meet all septic codes. KOA or shall meet all septic codes or use holding tanks based upon the number of sites they will have, and that they should also research access off of Highway 63 as opposed to using the Phipps Road, which is a town road. So again, as per what the town approved, they eliminated 11 sites and pushed the setback distance from the north property line down to 150 feet. And I'd like to bring up the map and kind of show you what that ends up looking like, if this will read well enough.
Jay, did you add any of these to your conditions?
I didn't because we didn't get that town letter back until like 2-3 days ago.
Okay.
But the 11 sites that KOA removed and that the town conditioned the 150-foot setback line on would be these 11 sites right here. There's 11 sites right on the north line. So instead of the 75-foot setback, it'd be 150-foot setback. So just these 11 sites as per what the town approved. And from what I can read in here, KOA agreed upon would be removed. Again, let me read into record those that you did not have a chance to read. Morning, Jay. My name is Michael Bando. I was the negative vote on the town of Glen Root town board regarding the KOA expansion. My reasons are as follows. The expansion does not fit the Glen Root comprehensive plan. Fred Gould is Glen Root's lead man and and he strongly objected to the issues of high density where the plan calls for low density and water issues because of the water table in that area. I do not feel the concerns of the local community were taken to heart. There was a sizable crowd seemingly united in opposition. No show of hands was asked for and no solid well reasons answered for those concerns were put forward. I have concerns with groundwater situation, especially since the area is hard pressed by the current campground. Finally, there's the problem of the increased traffic with both cars, trucks, and ATVs. The plan showed an ATV rental facility. When I pointed this out and asked if the ATV rentals would add to this persistent problem of ATVs, I was simply told that KOA representative that they would not build the rental facility. This raises a larger issue of just how good these plans are. Thank you for your time and consideration. Michael Bandro, Glen Root supervisor. To the zoning committee, we are writing this letter to express our strong opposition for the conditional use permit application. This is in regards to the adjacent property on Phipps Road and Highway 63 directly north of the existing KOA. There are two reasons why we do not support the approval of they indicate rezone application. Again, this doesn't need rezone approval. It already meets the zone district requirements for campground. But first, it seems the majority of landowners who live in close proximity to the campground are seriously opposed to its approval. And secondly, the proposed campground does not fall within the parameters of the town of Glen Root comprehensive land use map. Thank you for your time, Ruth and Dan Dooms. We have lived at our home on Gouch Circle for 38 years. We drive to town every day, 1 to 2 times. We love it here. It used to be quiet and safe. Now there are strangers walking around on our roads and properties at all hours. We don't know who they are. We lock everything. We used to leave the keys in our vehicles and the house doors unlocked. We can't do that anymore. In the summertime, Phipps Road is used by people campers walking to the Namakagon River, little kids on their bikes, dogs, kids fishing on the bridge, groups of people carrying tubes to the river, 4x4s going back and forth to the KOA, and local traffic. The people and the children from the new KOA will be crossing over Phipps Road back and forth to the old KOA, going to the pool, water slide, mini golf, bouncy pillow, ice cream store. People will be crossing the road in the evening hours. Also, the speed limit is 45. Hate to say it, but an accident is waiting to happen. When shorter stay campers leave, they'll be waiting on Highway 63 to turn onto the highway. Local traffic will be waiting. Also, it's just another inconvenience for people who live here year round and pay taxes. Patty and Linda Stevenson. And there's some additional comparisons. I believe those individuals are here so they can discuss that more if they want to. I think that's all.
Okay.
Do we look at that, Jake?
Sure, I can distribute that. Do you want these other two letters? He has some calculations. I don't know if they were density or sewer system aspects, but I do know that individual is here, and I think he was going to pass out some additional
I
information.
just, yeah, wait, sir, until you come up. Okay, that's it, Jake?
Yes, it is for right now.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 22-028.
I'll make the motion to run a public hearing.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Ms. Hessel, the second by Mr. Schuman to go into public hearing on CUP number 22-028. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now in public hearing. Okay, is the Verismo's here? Okay,
That's Megan.
Hello, my name is Megan, coming to you from 72 Prospect Street in Bridgeport, Massachusetts, representing Hayward Gateway Holiday 11544, US Highway 63 in Hayward, Wisconsin. The campground Hayward Gateway Holiday draws tourists from Wisconsin, Minneapolis, British Columbia, Texas, New York, Illinois, Ohio, and Arizona to the town of Hayward, Wisconsin each year from May to October. In the midst of inflation, elevated gas prices, and a recession, Hayward Gateway Holiday has run at an impressive 85% occupancy rate for the length of the season, welcoming our guests for nearly 12,000 guest nights this year. Already for the 2023 season, we've reserved over 3,100 camper nights, all guests who will contribute to the Hayward tourist community. According to the 2020 American Camp Association, Wisconsin Camp Economic Impact Findings Report, collectively year-round and summer camps in Wisconsin contribute 7,800 full-time equivalent jobs to the state annually, with an estimated statewide impact of $717 million in economic activity. This is supported by the direct and significant effects camps have on the state economy, with 184.8 million in labor income and 518 million just from operating expenditures. The new study details how a single overnight camp in one of Wisconsin's 72 counties contributes on average 2.3 million in economic activity to that county. It is our goal to be a partner to the community we operate in, and we do so not only by providing an affordable accommodation option to tourists drawn to Hayward for culturally significant events, such as the Lumberjack World Championship, Honor the Earth Homecoming Celebration Powwow, and the Fat Tire Festival, but through providing job opportunities to the local community. In addition to increasing capacity for tourist accommodations, it's our understanding from the Visitor and Convention Bureau that Hayward has a 33% room deficit. The expansion project will allow us to grow our team of 39 and offer additional employment opportunities to the community. We are very proud to offer our team members a competitive wage as well as competitive benefits. These include PTO, both vacation days, holiday pay, and sick days, a 401k employer-sponsored plan with a 4% match, and access to a group healthcare plan. We intend to deepen our relationship with the Hayward community by increasing accommodation options to the ever-growing number of tourists who visit Hayward from May through October. To achieve that goal, we are requesting to develop and operate a seasonal RV park and campground. This mixed-use purpose addition to our existing campground will be tailored to long-term stay guests who are interested in week, month, and season-long reservations. We believe that supporting this segment of guests will be beneficial to the community as our longer-term presence will reduce anticipated traffic and increase ancillary spend, supporting local businesses in the community. Each of our long-term guests are required to pass an annual background check and are held to high standards under our seasonal license agreement. This agreement outlines expectations noted in the staff report, including physical standards of the campsites, strict noise restrictions, quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., and the absolute prohibition of firearms or fireworks. It is also understood that a manager designee will be on site 24 hours per day while the campground is in operation. This will mitigate any disturbance to our neighbors, the closest of which is located approximately 120 feet from the nearest designated site. Additionally, as there are longer-term stay guests, there is no expectation of an undue increase in traffic to the area or disturbance to the existing residents. The proposed addition to our campground also aligns with the town and county comprehensive plan objectives to promote the expansion of natural resource-based industries, including tourism, as well as retail and service industries as the major economic development types in the town, and to attract and retain businesses that provide a livable wage, including the provision of adequate fringe benefits. We have met all regulatory setback requirements and have agreed to 150-foot setback from the two nearest property lines as proposed during the town hall hearing. I'd just like to say in closing that we are committed to being a partner to this community. I understand that there perhaps has been some bad relationship with previous owners of the campground, but we are willing to make concessions and we do want to be good neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next I have, Fred Gould wishing to speak for informational purposes. So neither favor or opposition.
Okay.
So that's how I kind of. Yep. Worked that one in there.
I'm Fred Gould, live on 12837 Small Road, Town of Linwood. I'm chairman of the Town of Linwood Planning Commission. We completed the land use plan and it was adopted by the town board in 2010 and did a minor tweak to it, making some minor adjustments this year. When I spoke at the just in relative to the proposed campground expansion, and spoke at the town board meeting last week, and the main purpose is to limit or avoid land use conflicts, to mitigate existing conflicts, and I think it becomes a real issue of increased density. If you're looking at existing 240 units, adding another, now we've knocked off 20. You're up to over 300 units in kind of a primary residential area. And the future land use plan for that called for forestry residential, which is low density, which is 5 acres or more in size. And pretty much surrounded by existing low density right now, especially that land north of Phipps Road. And Phipps, even though it's a rural road, it gets a lot of traffic from the east. It's a cut across to Mosquito Brook Road, to the Berkeys, and it obviously serves the Wild River, has a canoe landing right there at the bridge. But I think and as I mentioned, it creates kind of an infringement on existing private property rights. I think in the north, we really like to relish our own private properties. There's been, and which you'll hear today, there's been some problems with the increased density of the campgrounds, the overflow, just the activity has caused some problems. And then actually, the real water quality issue, even though it meets existing standards, you're in a floodplain, it's sand, everything flows towards the Nemacolin, and then we'll be adding some increased leach drain fields. I know it's going to, again, will meet DNR's existing sanitary standards, but would really question the long-term effects that it probably is going to have. So the existing parcel, about 2/3 of that was proposed to be commercial because of the intersection of Phipps and Highway 63. It's a natural commercial node with the existing campground there. So there is room for commercial. But there was not, the real issue becomes the increased density, adding the sites, the campgrounds, increasing it basically by a third. But thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I guess you should call for anyone else
Okay.
in support.
All right, is there anyone out there who would like to speak in support of this CUP? None? Okay, the rest must be in opposition.
It would appear that way. yes.
Okay. So,
First, I have to speak in opposition to the application, Patty. Sorry, I can't. How do you spell the last name?
Stevenson.
Stevenson.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Hey, I got some information.
Yes.
Yes.
There's an A in there.
What up there?
3 minutes. To so
Yeah.
that's why I was trying to.
Fair enough.
open.
You can get up there, it's fine, sir.
For 3 minutes?
3 minutes you got.
Okay, I'll be fast. I'm concerned, if he passes those things right here, see the little map there. Can I do like a PowerPoint thing here? See what's going on? If everybody is ready. This is Highway 63 going north that way. This is Fifth Road coming down here. This is the Namaquagan River.
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Maestri, can you hear him?
Yeah, there's-
When I try.
Want me to speak louder?
No, go right
No,
up there where the mic.
go right up to the podium.
Yeah, yeah. We can see that, sir.
Okay. So, sorry about that. This is the proposed KOA here. This is Phipps Road. All this purple is residential neighborhood. People, this is where the new KOA is gonna come in. They're gonna have a crossing going across the road here. This road is really busy. People come out of this KOA, they walk down the road to the river. Everyone has to go to the river. Just check it out. They all walk down the road, they walk in they take half the road up. People coming, and then they go to the river bridge, they stop there and stand on both sides of the bridge. People coming back up here, driving up here, will come up and they will come to the crossing here. Four-wheelers will come out, come down the road. They will have to go on the other side of the road because there are people walking in the road. People will have to go up to the road here. Four-wheelers will be coming out of the KOA from up here alongside Highway 63 and down into Phipps Road. Fifth wheel trailers will be coming along, turning down into Phipps Road here from 63. 63 north, people will be coming down with trailers turning in there also. They'll be all going down there. They'll be crossing this, crossing this crossing here. On weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the bar down the road here, which is very busy. I don't know if everyone's familiar with it, but it's a tavern with dancers. And they would be people, they're open from Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They are open from 4, I think, to 2 in the morning. People come down this road heading towards the tavern. They will be crossing this crossing. People in nighttime, people are in a hurry at the tavern. It's just going to be a whole cluster, this whole thing. We're just really concerned about someone getting killed here. And my second concern is about all the runoff that the KOA are putting into this residential area. And in the back of this thing that we handed out, I did some calculations of how much water would run off into our drain field.
Okay, sir, your 3 minutes is up.
Next I have Darlene Judd. Jude.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Delene Judd, but most of you probably will know me as Dee. And I am one of the landowners that I will be sharing a border with this new concern. I sent a letter of opposition back in September prior to the meeting then and listed all of my points at that time. Since then, at the town board a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, whenever, they spoke of some other things that I hadn't been aware of at the time I wrote my letter of opposition. I agree. I'm concerned about the water table. I'm concerned about the wastewater because I'm right in the middle behind it. I bought the property because it was such a nice serene setting. And I live at the end of Hegberg Road there where it turns into a trail and it's dead end, although traffic is kind of amazing for people who can't read signs. There is a lot of foot traffic along that road in the summertime as well. Many of them with their animals, and half of the animals are not on leashes. So they come and they nose along in front of my property, and then my dogs go nuts in the house. And when they go outside, I just don't want to see that many people in one area. I left the city because I came back here. I lived here 23 years before I had left. I came back because I wanted a slower mode of lifestyle. And I wanted an area that I could consider my own little slice of heaven. And now that's being intruded upon. And I'm not very happy about that. I shouldn't say I'm not very happy. I'm not happy at all about it. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't have any thought that, I mean, I don't know of any way they could fix it that I would be in favor of it. Because I hear noise all summer long. I hear firecrackers periodically all summer long. I know it's not my neighbors. Then that leaves the KOA. I know they say they have security guards, but I also know a county sheriff deputy that has said he's been out there several times because that's part of his responsibility is the campgrounds and stuff. So I question the experience and maybe the training of their security guards. And you're going to add that many more people. Basically, the bottom line is I don't want it there. I'm in a position that I'm not going to move because I'm on a fixed income. I'm retired. I know I'm not the only one. And obviously with the opposition we had at the town board meeting and here, you should get the idea. Thank you. By the way, my address is Hegberg, 11686N.
Thanks, Dee.
Thank you.
Next I have is Christy Kate Mayberry.
3 minutes, sir.
She has her own ideas, so I'm hoping you'll let her have her own 3 minutes.
Yep.
Yep.
We've been in the area, we've actually owned this property since back in the 90s. So appreciate it, and also we're concerned as the neighborhood is as far as density of use here. We're worried about groundwater and also the existing campsite. I thought, looking through my notes, and that was supposed to, that the existing campground was supposed to have holding tanks, not septic systems.
Could you speak up first, please?
I'll give it a try. I don't know. I've got, my voice isn't that loud, but at any rate, our family would oppose it along with these neighbors, and you've got the map here. We've got 900 feet of frontage on the old campground. And the traffic issues, the water issues, the noise issues. We get a lot of KOA traffic on our property, which I really don't mind a bit. But it's the density issues that I think are the worst. But also, I don't know, Jay, if you had any time to look up whether holding tanks were a condition of their expansion of the campgrounds when they expanded it to include the water slide and surrounding properties.
It wasn't as a condition, no, but having adequate, sewer system, or waste disposal. Now, within a licensed campground, DACAP does allow transfer units, which would be the 200-gallon tanks that would commonly sit under a camper. But then those would need to be pumped out by a licensed pumper and then taken to a waste treatment facility.
And I would definitely like to see, no septic fields in this, because again, this water, if I remember my, water law and the water would, the groundwater would go towards the river and downstream, so which takes it right through a major, residential neighborhood. So, I would appreciate that consideration. We've got a great neighborhood there. We'd sure like to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, with that, then Kate Mayberry.
I am Kate Mayberry, live on Gouch Circle Road, and we're neighbors with the existing KOA. I also am concerned about groundwater contamination. Feel so fortunate to have a national park in our neighborhood. I want to keep it clean. I don't want it to become like the Apple River area. I'm concerned about the density. An entry on Phipps Road. I can't imagine getting in and out of there, especially on weekends when campers are coming in and going out. And I also would love to see holding tanks. I know that they talk about being in compliance with whatever septic is needed, but we all know instances all over this country and the world where that doesn't work out and there's water contamination. And being right next to a national park, I think that should be a really important consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Next, I have Carol Stone.
Yes.
That's from the Department of, I'm Carol Stone. I live at 11702 North US Highway 63. Those papers are from the DOT. My husband wrote a letter to them regarding access. Anyway, we live like 1/4 from a mile from the existing KOA. There's a lot of noise and smoke and stuff from that. This new KOA would be boarding our south line. It'd be right next door, because like having a city in our backyard. That's going to contaminate the water level. Eventually, it's going to affect that. The increased traffic. Every day there would probably at least be a couple hundred people roaming around the area. And the ATV rentals and the snowmobiles, it's bad enough. We get snowmobiles on the Highway 63 all the time. That's noisy, but they have them right over next door, revving up their engines and enjoying themselves, but we wouldn't be enjoying it. Basically, we do not need another KOA in the neighborhood as far as we're concerned. That's our opinion. It's a nice, we've lived there all our married life. We've worked hard to build what we have. And it's quiet and it's private and it's old. And we like to keep it that way. We don't want to have a bunch of noise going on all the time. KOA does say they will try to control the people, but you can't control people. They got minds of their own, they'll do their own thing. And I would like to say, just in closing, that ever since I've been in office, I have felt that the residents pay our wages and that we have to answer to them. And I think it's the board's duty to protect them, and they did not protect them at the last meeting. The 4 members that voted for this were not representing the township. They let the people talk, but their response was negative. You could tell immediately they were not on our side, and I was actually ashamed to be on that board. Of course, I don't have a vote, and I would have voted no anyway. But I mean, I was ashamed of the way they responded to the people that came with the petition. We had 17 people on a petition plus other people that weren't, and they were ignored. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, ma'am.
Next, I have Jennifer Bando.
Good morning. My name's Jennifer Bando. I'm here kind of representing my husband, Michael, who was the negative vote on the town board. I hope you all, well, you read the letter. If you have any questions on it, I'd be happy to answer those for him. I would also just like to add this comment. My husband's last comments in his letter, he said the plan showed an ATV rental facility. And when I pointed this out and asked if rental ATVs would add to the present problem with ATVs, I was simply told by the KOA representative that they would just not build the rental facilities. Now, I heard you say this morning, you're talking about an ATV rental and a snowmobile rental. There was nothing mentioned at our town board meeting about a snowmobile rental. We were told that if this passes, this would be going from May and through October. Nothing about winter time, nothing about snowmobiles. And my husband's last sentence was, this raises the larger issue of just how good these plans are. And I question that. There was a great big representation from our township, and as Carol stated, we weren't heard. I asked the question of our town board chairman, when all of this discussion was going on. I said, Gordy, I have a question. You've got a lot of discussion going on here. I would like to know how you as a board are going to determine what your answer is to this, how you're going to come to a conclusion on how you're going to vote. And Mr. Ron Poppy said, Jenny, you'll know when we vote. You can sit down. So.
Thank you, ma'am.
That is all I have for public hearing slips. And if you want to call for anyone else, there are a few people online too that may be wanting to respond. There's an individual that's named Accounting, and then Nancy Dermott. If either of you are wanting to speak on this case, you'll have to unmute yourself.
What's your name?
Nancy.
Nancy, are you on there?
I am, and I do not have anything to add at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
You can call for the anyone else in the audience.
Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak in opposition of this CUP?
See Doug's hand.
Doug?
I'd like to speak, but it's more of an informational thing. If I may,
Yeah, that's fine.
Douglas Kurzweil, 11055W Arrow Road, Hayward, Wisconsin. Earlier this month, the Environmental Advisory Committee forwarded a citizen resolution to the District Leadership Council of the Wisconsin Conservation Congress regarding the sizing of septic systems for RV trailer parks, RV trailer camps. I believe under current rules, they calculate a usage of 30 gallons of water per person per day. With the advent of the park models, which are basically self-contained houses, selling for anywhere from $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 each, and they're seasonal. They call it seasonal. It's year-round placement in these parks. There is a citizen resolution proposing that the state consider upgrading these volume standards of wastewater, and perhaps more up to what they would for a seasonal stick-built cabin of 70 gallons per person per day. And again, in this area here, adjacent to the river, the hydrology being what it is, the soil conditions being what they are, I think this is something that, if not on this particular matter, on future matters of this type ought to be taken into consideration before going forward with proposals of this type. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Anyone else want to speak in opposition, ma'am?
Hello, my name is Karen Sandman, and I have lived on Phipps Road at address 14871 for 34 years. We live right on the road. We see all the traffic. We get the dust from the four-wheelers. We see the children walking, pets off leashes. The ATVs after the evening, they come home from riding, they're in the KOA campground, they let their kids go up and down. They think they're out in the country, it doesn't matter, let the kids take the ATVs up and down the road. The dangers of these kids and walking, the town road is just a skinny town road, and to have groups of people walking, tubers, walking dogs, everybody goes to the river. Vehicles come, they can't pass, it's turned into a one-lane road. I can't imagine what it would be like on a Friday night having campers coming down Phipps Road, waiting to turn into this campground. We see it off of Highway 63 on Friday nights where they can be backed up, 3-4 campers still on the highway waiting to get in. They did make a turn lane when they did the highway about 5 years ago, which helped. But Sunday mornings, they're waiting to get out and get out of that campground too. Just can't imagine what it'd be like to have another whole campground with that many more people coming and going, and the dangers it'll be. They do music on Fridays and Saturday nights that stop at 10. There's gonna be people crossing that road. We've got a bar down the road. Those people, traffic. It's just, we're really against it. The litter, just everything. So,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Ma'am, can you restate your name? I did not get it.
Oh, Karen
Last name?
Sandman.
Sandman. Got it. Thank you.
All right, anyone else out there want to speak in opposition? Ma'am, you spoke once here already, didn't you?
Just note one thing,
Yes, come on, please.
I just wanted to say on that DOT,
You'll have to step to the mic.
Step to the mic, ma'am.
according to that letter, the DOT recommends using the side road, not access off on Highway 63.
Okay, thank
Thank
you. Thank you. Is that it, Jay?
I think someone else had their hand up.
Oh,
A couple other people.
go ahead, ma'am.
Penny Van Eck. I live at 14884 West Phipps Road, which is the property right to the east of the campground. We have a lot of, we would be right there. We're right across from the KOA. We do have people wandering to our property, walking around. So having it that close to us is concerning. We also are concerned about where they have the proposed drain fields was right adjacent to our property. So we're hoping that they do put in septic tanks, holding tanks, not just fields. And again, we reiterate the concern about traffic on Phipps with people trying to get in and out of the campground, because we do see how it does get backed up off of 63. So that's.
Okay, thank you. Right, anyone else? Step forward, ma'am. State your name and address, please.
I'm Linda Stevenson, 11525 North Circle. Patty's wife. He did kind of a comparison of what the water table and how much water goes through the campground and like our area where we live, Phipps Gulch, 12 homes, 25 residents, figuring 50 gallons a day per person comes out to in 1,250 gallons per day, 365 days a year. Equals 456,000 gallons a year, just for our little area, dumped into about 35 acres. The old KOA, 232 sites, assuming 696 people based on full capacity, 3 people per site, using 30 gallons a day, 30 gallons of water a day per person. 696 times 30 is 20,000 gallons per day. For 36 days, he figured, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in June, July, and August, was 751,000 gallons in 36 days. The new KOA, 73 sites, 219 people based on full occupancy, 3 people per site, using 30 gallons per day per person, comes out to, for 3 days, he only figured 3 days out of the summer months, 236,000 gallons in 36 days, dumped in about 3 acres. And he did he dug a hole on our property line which is back to back with KOA, dug down 6 feet. And there's a foot of water in it, the next. So the water level is really, really low. So we're very worried about the water and kids. Crossing the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Why give you guys those letters? Did you read the one from the second letter of from Amy Bussler?
Yes.
You guys got that?
Yep.
So is there anybody else out there that wants to speak in opposition?
Other thing?
Quickly. Come up here, don't state your name.
Patty Stevenson, Big Circle Road. I did a Wisconsin DOT check and the average daily traffic count for Highway 63 in 2021 was 3,900 cars per day going up 63. Just to give you that.
Thank you. All right, anyone else out there want to speak in opposition? Okay, if not,
For this type of scenario, do you want to re-ask if the applicant or representative wants to make?
okay,
any
sure.
Additional comments.
Do you want to make an additional comment? Yes, you may,
We generally do that when we have this kind of.
Yeah. because you're acting as the applicant, on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you very much. Do I need to restate my name?
Please, just.
Please.
Megan Durkin, 72 Prospect Street, Newburyport, Massachusetts. I just wanted to take a moment to address a few of the concerns that have come up, especially concerns about the traffic anticipated on Pips Road. We did verify the easement that Larry had received off of Highway 63 to Carroll's Point. That was noted for residential purposes, so for commercial, that wouldn't be allowed. But with a seasonal property, I wanted to clarify, it's a little bit different property type than what the existing campground is. As a seasonal guest, the season starts May 1st through October 15th. So generally they're coming in the week of October 1st to check in, and they're not relegated to the 3 p.m. check-in time that our transient guests are. So there is the kind of peak check-in time from maybe 3 to 7 p.m. at the transient campground. For a seasonal guest, they're able to come into the campground as they please. It's generally for the weekend, typically more of like a timeshare. But the RV is basically there for the length of the season. So there wouldn't be, rigs coming down the highway and onto Pips Road for that parcel, particularly all season long. I also wanted to touch on just some of the safety concerns that were noted. We do have 3 security guards that are just on the existing parcel. They stay an hour after our quiet time, which is 11 p.m. And on, holiday weekends, we do have increased volume. Nancy Dermott, who is joining us from Zoom, and her husband Brian are the 2 general managers for the property. They also do rounds from the time the campground is open in the morning until well after it's closed. I recognize that there has been a history again where the property owner and the neighbors were in a bit of conflict, and we are committed to repairing those relationships and to taking a different approach to being a friendly neighbor to the existing neighbors here. We did have to call the sheriff in to remove one guest this season who needed to be removed for safety concerns. So we do take safety very seriously, but it was in no way a habit that we had to kick out guests every weekend. And with the seasonal guests that would be at this parcel, we do sign an agreement with them, so you do have quite a bit of leeway in enforcing that, and we have had to remove seasonal guests in the past, so there is a bit more of a regulation with this type of guests than there would be for a transient guest. Are there any questions that you have for me?
I have none. Go ahead, Ms. Sisson.
When did the new owners take? Last August. So this was our first full season this last year, and we closed October 3rd.
Is there any estimate, you mentioned jobs, any idea of what your estimated the new campsite would produce?
So it depends a little bit with the different units that were permitted. Where we permitted the ATV rental, it would increase a bit, but we're thinking anywhere between like 7 and 11 positions for that property specifically.
I have one more question. I'm not sure you'd even know the answer to it. These are mostly vacationers, or you anticipate a mix of I'll call it, lack of a better term, seasonal housing, where workers come in, need a place to stay, to work at a resort, not vacay away somewhere else. I mean, is that something you're anticipating?
Absolutely, yep. So especially like traveling nurses, utility men who are traveling for the length of a season, we have seasonal guests like those at many of our properties. So absolutely. Pleasure.
I have two questions as
Go ahead.
well, Mr. Chairman. Can you speak more on the aspects of the ATV rental and snowmobile rental? Because ultimately I did put that in, you know, as part of the letter that I believe that was submitted by you for the ATV / snowmobile rental, as to how that's going to look, how many potential rental vehicles that would be permitted.
But within the staff report, it had been noted that the operating season would be from May 1st to October 15th. So I don't believe that we would be able to operate a snowmobile rental operation. And I do hope that my comment in the previous session was more in the spirit of concession rather than walking back our plans. We are trying to make concessions so that we can be good neighbors here. As far as the ATV operation, likely we're going to have to start small because we haven't done this type of operation before. There is a trail access off of the property, so it is popular for guests to come in and rent ATVs. But imagine we do like 5 to 10 to start, and it wouldn't be a significant like fleet.
And then I guess one other follow-up question. You had a chance to review the possible conditions as listed in my staff report. Did you have any objections with any of those? And then more specifically speaking on the town of Glenroot, that eliminated 11 additional sites and reduced the north property line setback to 150 feet. That was agreed upon you as acting as the applicant's representative?
Yes,
Okay.
we've reached the 150-foot setback, which could eliminate the 11 sites.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr.
Chairman, yeah.
Schumer.
Didn't Jay, the town board request that they have access off 63 and not Phipps?
No, they said look into it, and the
Okay.
response that we got back, that Carol was able to give us, that if that driveway that currently is off of 63 is to be used more than just for rural residential, it would not be allowed. So they have not applied for a new commercial driveway permit, but at this point, they don't have approval unless they were to go that route. And I'd be hesitant to say, here in that letter that Carol had submitted, DOT's recommendation is to have the requester, recommendation to the requester would be that all access come off the side road, which I believe is indicating a Phipps road. If highway access is still looking to be pursued, to the property owner may need to look into highway improvements such as a bypass lane or turn lane. So at this point, I would anticipate that it is Phipps road access.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And there's some confusion with whether it's consistent with the town comprehensive plan. I think you had mentioned that it was, and then the planning commission chairman said that it's residential low density, so that he thought it wasn't consistent.
Our understanding of this comp plan is that location had been zoned for commercial, specifically for the purpose of the campground, were it to look to expand in the future. I think there were a few other items noted on the staff report. And
So the property is zoned residential recreational too, and as per the town of Glenroot's comprehensive plan map, it's difficult to see here. I do have it zoomed in. I would say slightly more than a third, maybe about a half of the property is designated as future land use of commercial, where the other half right here, if you can see my little mouse going over it, that is of the rural preservation. Is that correct? Is Fred still here?
Yeah, no.
Rural residential, sorry, rural residential and commercial. So there is a mixing of what the town calls for in their future development, where again, half of that anticipated land to be, it's probably split kind of down the middle, where half of it was looked to be as commercial, future commercial, and the other half as future rural preservation.
Which is a 5 acre.
Yeah, where the town would consistently like to see 5 acre lot minimums, correct?
Ms. Essel, did you have a question?
no, Jay answered it.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Nope, thank you, ma'am. Yes. Yes, sir.
Again, my name's Chris Mayberry and I'm opposed to this project, but if you do approve it, I would very much appreciate and that would address the main concern if holding tanks are required on this part of it. Awful lot of water, the pond that you see along Highway 63 there that was dug when they renovated Highway 63, that's the groundwater there, and it's not that deep. So again, holding tanks would be a way of addressing that problem, but I do still oppose the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any more wish to speak in opposition? Okay, if not, need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 22-208.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by
I'll second it.
Ms. Hessel and a second by Mr. Schuman to come out of public hearing on CUP number 22-028. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, the town of Leonard conditional use permit number 22-028, owner Larry and Kim Vermisio, represented by Hayward Property Owner LLC. This request, at least is how it reads right now, again, barring any other conditions or alterations, this permit is requested, section 17.3, parent B, parent 1, and parent 3, the Surrey County zoning ordinance to operate a seasonal RV park and campground, 84 total sites, including 8 camping cabins, as well as a ATV rental business.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Is it now 73 sites, not 84?
So you would have to make that condition, or at least have the discussion that you're altering it based upon the town's recommendation.
And can we get Andy's opinion on any other regulations that we would want as subject to holding tanks?
Yeah, and I'm sure, yeah, Andy can chime in on that, but yeah, so you could condition that because of health and safety and groundwater contaminations. Andy, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you could make that a condition.
Oh, absolutely. The thing I would just caution is that we tie it to whatever standards from ATCP, local health code, things like that, so that we have objective standards on that.
Go ahead, Tweet.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to deny CUP 22-028. With the finding of facts for denial being number 10, it would be significantly damaging to the rights of others and property values. Number 11, it would be detrimental to ecology, wildlife, wetlands. Number 13, it would create topographical problems such as runoff, drainage, erosion, flooding, vegetative cover removal. Number 14, it would create traffic and highway access problems. 17, it would not be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. And 18, it would create an objectionable view.
Okay,
That's my motion.
we have a motion on the floor to deny the CUP number 22-028. I will second that motion. Any more discussion? If not, Pat, can we have a roll call, please?
Stacy,
No. I mean, I agree with the denial, so
Oh,
am I saying yes? or
you
no?
are,
So the motion is to deny.
motion is
So
to
if you would like to deny at this point, you would say yes.
Yes, thank you.
Tweed,
Yes.
Ron,
yes.
Michael,
Yes.
was that yes?
Yes.
Mhm.
John,
No.
So Stacy, can I just clarify for the record? So yes to the motion or no to the motion?
Yes to the motion.
Okay.
I normally don't agree with them, so that was surprising. Just kidding.
So 4-1.
We were shocked.
So
Yeah, and I think that's why he asked for clarification, for sure.
I just want to, and that the record reflected, so. Motion to deny 4-1.
And if I may clarify, the only reason is because of the issues with the water, with the river right there. So otherwise, I applaud people that try to invest in our community. I just don't want it to be a issue with the river there.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Give them a minute or two to exit, so I'm not trying to
Talk
talk over them. Yeah.
You all for being so patient.
Not a problem, man. Thank you.
So under new business, we got a request for an individual that lives down towards Ojibwa that was hit pretty heavily with the storm damage 3 years ago. Those that remember back, that area got just annihilated by straight line winds, maybe even a touchdown tornado. And this individual owns quite a bit of land and has a lot of down timber and wants to utilize that timber to produce lumber. The zone district in which it's located is in a residential zone district. And as far as the operation and use of a portable sawmill is only conditioned by a conditional use within the agricultural and forestry zone districts. So I'm coming to this zoning committee as to, is there a way that this guy can get in there and cut up some of this wood, but also cutting it up for lumber? Or are we going to make him go through a rezone process on top of a conditional use permit? Or should we look at amending the zoning ordinance to allow on a case-by-case basis a portable sawmill within a residential recreational zone district? And then again, put certain conditions on it, such as temporary use for 2-year time limit. I'm head scratched on this one because it doesn't fit within the zone district requirements. And in the same aspect, why should he not be allowed to go out there and mill up some of this wood to use? Because it's just going to go to waste if he doesn't get in there and start cutting it up. So this one's difficult for me, and I need help from this committee to figure out which way we go. And I talked to Andy a little bit about it. We definitely want to have the conversations, and I think we landed on, that we would have to make either some type of special exemption, but still have zoning committee approval through a public hearing process, that we're only doing this on a temporary basis. But it becomes difficult because again, it doesn't line up within the zoning code.
So is this guy wanting to get his own portable sawmill to put in there?
Yes, that, or I think he owns one already. Or...
I talked to the individual on the phone. He called in. He has his own portable sawmill there. And that's what it came in, and it's kind of an after the fact scenario.
Yeah.
I think
because he was cutting some of it up for
He was
his
cut-
own, but he was going to
Correct.
start selling some of it. Then I thought.
not my
too.
understanding, is
Okay.
he's not gonna sell it, at least on site. I mean, once it leaves the site, I don't know what exactly happens to it. But he asked me what do I have to do to make this legal? Because his neighbor brought it to his attention that, hey, you may not be able to do this.
Well, I think we should stay within our zoning ordinances. I mean, I know what it is. I see all this timber a lot when I go to winter because that's where it's at. That way, and there's a lot of it just sitting there. And I hate to see it go to waste too. I mean, there's some really, really nice pine in there, so. But I think we should follow our ordinances.
Yeah, because it is in the RR2 zone district, and I'm bringing it up on a map here. Now, again, this is kind of this weird situation, but I mean, and that's why I'm bringing it to the
Right.
committee, because I agree with you, because
Yeah.
if it doesn't fall within the ordinance code, how can I just say, yeah, go ahead and do it?
What's it different than logging it though? I mean, it's just that you're producing it right there, but if you're not selling it, you're not commercial, so what is the difference?
I think it's the milling of it there, as opposed to taking whole logs and going to some other, infrastructure, yeah.
Cause I've seen a lot of the portable saw mills, they're advertising and now people are going, instead of logging, this is gonna be a trend, so you probably wanna research it more because it's gonna be like your tiny house scenario
Mhm.
this is a popular way instead of logging, so I think it's something to research as well.
Yeah, I mean, he did ask the question, he said, well, what difference is this than me having a logger come in and take all the wood off the property?
Right.
I think
Which happens all the time.
technically by ordinance, that wouldn't be allowed either.
You have to get a cutting permit,
Correct.
but you couldn't do it for a silviculture practice on this land.
But if someone's building a house on this property in RR2, can you bring in a portable sawmill then to produce his own lumber to create that house? That would be a incident, I think that would be an incidental use to building the house on the property, so that is a little different. Where similarly, somebody can excavate a site and remove earth to create a foundation,
Mhm.
and that's not non-metallic mining at that time. It's incidental to the permitted use.
Right.
Yeah. What?
And Andy, what were your thoughts on this again?
Then I'd rather it fit squarely within one of the terms of the zoning code, because I think trying to figure out exactly what that is. I mean, I agree that we should do a little more research in defining what is a portable sawmill, and what is the temporary use of a portable sawmill. And I'd be much more comfortable having that identified as a conditional use that then this committee could take a look at, define hours of operation and things of that nature.
Sure. And I agree with Ms. Hessel that I think that's gonna be a growing trend.
Well, there's a lot
Supply-
of portable
the supply
sawmills out there
problem,
already.
the Cost of everything.
Yep.
So what do they do? So what do they do? If you
Well,
have a
I don't know. I know there's one that he just uses in our township for his own private use. So, I mean, he doesn't have to come before the town board or anything to get a permit or anything for it. But it sounds like that would be the same thing as what this guy's doing, so.
Yeah, and there's got to be a line as for personal use versus a business use. And I think that's where some of that research probably needs to be conducted. And I think I'm getting enough direction from this committee to do that additional research and bring it back to you. And then look at a potential, it would ultimately have to be as a potential ordinance amendment to allow for this type of temporary portable sawmill use within other zone districts included and not limited to residential recreational too. But yeah, I think definitions are going to be key on this one. So I think we can leave it at that, I'll do additional research and bring that back to the committee next month as far as, I don't think to the full extent of an ordinance amendment yet, but at least the definition potentials of this to see if this is something that committee wants to proceed with allowing in these areas. And I think again, where if it's, it's as a temporary use and put a condition that, okay, you can go in there and you can, mill up that wood, but we're only gonna allow you to do it for 2 years and not turn this into a full-time business. And now in this residential zone district, there's, a new, what's the one out by Cable, or not Cable, by Sealy? Vortans, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, that Vortans doesn't belong out in a residential setting. That's a commercial use.
What
So that's
about
my
it?
fears with that.
Is Maynard's on A, is that residential? And that's commercial, that's a commercial.
Yeah, I think that one's pre-existing though, because they've been doing that since I can never remember.
But so what do you do with this gentleman now? Do you ask him to cease operation until?
We'd have to, yeah. No, this would be the time he'd probably wanting to get going
Yeah,
on that
that's what
stuff.
I mean. It's
Yeah.
it's unfortunate because
if he's just using it for personal use, how do you stop it? But if he's selling it commercially, and you're saying that he's not, but
Well, yeah, and even the personal use, I mean, that's again, going back into the definitions and looking as far as, and maybe other, state statutes, can you mill your own wood on your own property for your own use?
I mean, I agree with Ms. Hessel, but it's still, we need to follow our zoning ordinance as of right now and take another look at this.
I will do more research and bring it back to you, so.
But I think at times amendments are in order.
Yeah,
right? That we would
sure.
look at it. Okay,
All right, next we have. I sent this out a little bit late. I don't know if you guys got this. I'll bring you a copy here. We talked a few months ago and a few years ago. So looking into the zoning ordinance, there's a lot of discrepancy between this multifamily development, whether it's dwelling multifamily or whether it's a multi-dwelling development, and the ordinances are kind of confusing. They're very confusing, to be honest. So we definitely need some corrections within the ordinance to make this clear and concise as to these types of, two-family dwellings or two dwelling units on the same lot, or even more than two dwellings on the same lot, where they're allowed, how they're allowed, and what zone districts they're allowed. Furthermore, when we talked with the committee back in September of 2020, and again, back in, I believe it was June of this year, June or July, we need to fall on a more clear-cut definition of a resort. So this is my very first attempt in putting something together to clarify those concerns, as well as those that were at least mirrored by zoning committee at previous public hearings. I talked a little bit with Andy about this. I don't think Andy's seen my kind of first attempt at this yet, because it did come out later this week.
Yeah, I've seen it, Jay. I just haven't had a chance to review it.
Yeah, and again, this is the very first draft. I just, again, wanted to get it to the committee to see, if there's, something that you're not wanting as part of this, something that we should be including as part of this. But, right now, when we look at the zone districts, you look at residential 1, and the residential 1 zone district allows for 1 and 2 family year-round dwellings. It further goes on to state within section 18 for dimensional requirements that each additional dwelling unit within R1 requires an additional 5,000 square feet of lot area. So this is already in there. I added this to make it read easier, because it's actually kind of in 2 parts. You have to go into the zone district requirements, and then you have to go into the dimensional requirements under a footnote to see that, if I want to do a duplex in R1, I need to have an additional 5,000 square feet of land area in order to accommodate that. It's in there. This makes it read easier in one spot. Then we go into this multifamily, not multifamily development, but multifamily, which is for 3 or more dwelling units in the R1 zone district, which I think that's where some of the confusion starts to come from, because R1 references multifamily, but then R1 and RR2 reference multi-dwelling developments. So that's where I'll be the first to admit that I hate that portion of the ordinance, because it doesn't really line up. I think the intent was for having this multi-family as more like apartment complexes or triplexes, something where you can, potentially meet the housing needs in a strict residential zone district versus the residential recreational zone district. I don't think we need to change that unless we want to, loosen or stricten that. I know there's always concerns with, additional housing. I'm not changing it to make it more prohibited in this instance. That's already what's in code. But if we want to look at potentially loosening that, we can. There then relies on the aspects. This would be as a non-shoreland zoning versus shoreland zoning. So zoning's complicated. But when we move on to RR1, again, as a permitted use is 1 and 2 family dwellings. And this again is where I've added that 2 family dwellings, again, as part of a duplex is occurring in the same unit. They must meet double the minimum requirements for lot width and lot area. So if you want a duplex on the lake, you're going to need a minimum 200 feet of frontage and you're going to need a minimum of 40,000 square feet. That is how I've always interpreted it as. I think that's how the state would end up interpreting that as. And that's where I've just made that kind of a clarification and had that concisive language within the zone district requirements. That's when we move on to the multi-dwelling development. And the multi-dwelling development, again, is the most confusing aspect of the ordinance. So again, the existing language, and the reason why I deleted this is because within the RR1 versus the RR2, they were trying to say the same thing, but they were actually a little bit different. So once upon a time, someone must have amended that once before, but didn't amend it. So I mean, the deletion here is really just the same as it was in RR2. So I wouldn't look too much into that, but what I did really add is the multi-dwelling development or other similar developments, including condominium, hotel, motel, and resort. And then I added in that multi-family, which is the 3 or more dwelling units, just to mirror what the R1 language would state. And again, that each dwelling unit must have a minimum lot width and the lot area per each unit. So, and I even put an example. Now, whether or not we should use examples in there or not, I mean, that's probably a question for legal, but that 3-unit development would have to have 300 feet of width and 60,000 square feet of land area, which is a little over an acre.
Hey Jay, can I interrupt quick too?
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
because you and I have been through this so many times, it's mind numbing to see the inconsistencies in the ordinance. Because if you scroll back up a little bit and look at the definition under 17(1)(a), it says 1 family and 2 family year-round dwellings, plural. So does that mean you can have 2 homes on the same lot? Or is it just 1 home on the lot that happens to be a duplex? And if you look and interpret it that it means 1 home that may happen to be a duplex, but still just 1 home, you've got zoning taking care of 1 home, and you've got zoning taking care of 3 or more homes. And then you have the question, what if somebody has 2 homes on the lot? And so to Jay's point, there are so many internal inconsistencies that cleaning up the definitions is going to be critical. But of course, as soon as you clean up, and I'm sorry if you're going to get to this, Jay, but there are going to be properties that we know exist that are going to be out of compliance with whatever we decide we're going to do.
Yep.
But when they go grandfathered in, or.
They would become non-conforming,
Yeah.
which, yes, that technically means grandfathered. But then it's whether or not, okay, now that you're grandfathered and now you want to replace, do you have to conform with the current ordinance requirements?
You gotta be in that same footprint.
Right. So those become difficult situations and scenarios.
But I like the idea of you working with Andy to make it more cleaned up and then we come back with a vote.
Yeah, and I will work with Andy, and I just wanted to bring this as kind of the initial introduction that, we're working on this type of ordinance amendment change. And if there's other suggestions from this committee as to, it'd be nice if there was a way for someone to do this, or I don't think they should need that much land area because we don't want to limit development, or they should have more land area because we want to limit density. So that's again why I'm kind of bringing it forward to you, as well as also, you know, kind of, again, the working definitions of this dwelling multifamily, the definition of what a true dwelling unit is, what multi-dwelling development means, and really what the definition of a resort means. I mean, that was one of the conversations that we had a couple of years ago is, you know, the scenario was there's 2 existing dwelling units on one lot that doesn't meet the current ordinance requirements for land width, land area. And that individual now wants to rent out both dwelling units. By the rental of 2 dwelling units on one lot, does that constitute as a resort? And that is, Mr. Kurzweil alluded to, I'm not trying to cover wool over anyone's eyes. That is what, you know, a determination of myself was appealed and brought to circuit court, where is further getting appealed back from the county. So we're still not yet clear on what aspects. And in the end, I don't necessarily care. It doesn't bother me, but I need to have clear and concise language so I can administrate ordinances.
Well, I like the idea of having it black and white, so you don't need a law degree to figure out what kind of permit you need.
Yeah,
I mean,
that would be great.
when the general public is looking at things like this and trying to make a determination into investing in our community, it needs to be black and white, not so vague that the average person can't decipher what they need and what they don't need.
All right, so I can craft any language to get it there, but in the end, it's really up to you as elected officials as to what do you want that language to read. Do you want people to be able to rent out 2 dwelling units on one lot? Do you want people to have, 200 feet of frontage and they can build 2 houses without splitting the lot? Those are the concerns that I have trying to administer. But then again, bringing it back to you as the elected officials is, you're the ones that have to vote on this.
But it doesn't align with our comprehensive plan. I mean, that's what all of our decisions should be made upon.
Well, they align, but they also conflict. I mean, the comprehensive plan is to, preserve the natural scenic beauty, but also a comprehensive plan allows for additional housing opportunities. So those always kind of mesh.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to allow more housing and more tourists and bring in more revenue, but at the expense of water degradation, increased density on lake shores. So it's always a tough one.
Well, we don't need just for tourists, we need for locals so that
Mhm.
they stay here permanently. And that's where our housing issue is. So if there's anything that would be added to that comprehensive plan would be for residential, but I like where you're going and I'm glad that you're trying to make it more general, public friendly.
Yeah, easier to understand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'll circle back with Andy and we'll probably end up having to have a sit down and kind of work through some of these issues and get them where they need to get. I'll probably bring back a version 2 next month. Whether or not that version will be ready to go to the towns for approval or not, yet to be seen. We'll see how quickly we can get it. At any point, if the towns do receive it and, 50% are in approval, it'll still come back to this committee as an official public hearing.
Thanks for your work on that.
I think we're looking at December on that, honestly, because we do have the state holiday coming up next month.
Deer hunting.
It's a 9-day holiday.
Not Thanksgiving, deer
Yeah.
hunting.
All right, very good. Item C is zoning committee decision to hold a public hearing on conditional use permit number 22-005.
I don't even remember that. What was
This
that?
is the marina on Lake Chetek. This was by an applicant, at that point was Beverly Scar, who had since sold to the agent Joshua O'Rourke. Joshua O'Rourke is requesting for 1,000 square foot commercial building for recreational sales and marina, which does fall in line with the zone district. Now, at the I'm trying to look when this was initially heard. March. So this was heard in March. And this is before we had Andy Phillips. Steve Sorensen was represented at that time, and Bruce Paulson made a motion that is very vague. He made the motion to adjourn, which really isn't even the right term, but to adjourn for additional information for an engineered driveway, grading for building and driveway permit from the county. That then got second and approved, and it was enacted. I brought this back in, again, it was either June or July, because it never had a timeline as to when the applicant needed to make those concessions for the adjournment. And we said that he needs to have those basically in place by November 1st in order to bring this conditional use permit back as a public hearing. Now, those items that I listed for the adjournment, again, are vague. The applicant does have a driveway permit at this point, but one of the things that I find very interesting is if the applicant wanted to have this as a residential property and just build a couple residents, it wouldn't have been a condition of this committee or condition of Sawyer County Zoning's office that he would need engineering for a driveway. So why Bruce instilled that engineering for the driveway would need to be done, I don't know. But it doesn't seem like that might be something he could do within that residential zone district. So the applicant has somewhat played the game and said, well, what if I did want to put in residence? Will you give me permission to do a driveway? I said, yes. And now it's saying, well, now I got my driveway and I'd like to go back and, proceed with the conditional use permit. So he kind of played the game a little bit. But at the same point, we need to pick this conditional use permit back up, not to necessarily approve it, but we need to hear it. And if we open the public hearing and you don't like what's being conducted, you can deny it, you can postpone it even further, but this is sitting out there in limbo and we need to have ultimately some clarification on it.
I would put it back on the agenda.
Sure.
I'll second that, third it, fourth it, whatever you.
Yeah, and I would put it back on the December agenda. And one of the other aspects, it says, engineering for the building. The applicant in conversations with me said, I don't know where I'm going to be putting the building yet. I don't know as to what size it may be. It may be 800 square feet. It might be 1,000 square feet. It might be 600 square feet. How can I satisfy your condition of engineering before approval if I don't know what I'm actually building? The correct action would have been to, sorry, one second. The correct action would be if you were going to approve, the approval would be conditioned upon engineering, not to put a condition on to prove that you can do engineering prior to even granting a cup. So it's a cart in front of the horse scenario, but go ahead, Andy.
No, I was going to make that point, Jay, is that I want to shift the burden over to the applicant here. Put it on the, wipe out all prior conditions and wipe out the adjournment, whatever that means. Put it on the agenda for December and provide the applicant, we're going to hear the conditional use permit application as presented. And if you want to amend that application, feel free to amend it.
And it sounds like, the committee made that decision to hold that public hearing in December. So do we need anything else to solidify that?
No, I just want to make sure the record is clear that we're wiping out any prior contingencies, adjournments, conditions, whatever it is.
Just like starting over on Andy.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that the application is going to be different now because we have a driveway. And so that's fine. So we have a driveway. So if the applicant wants to file an amended application, that's fine. Otherwise, we just go on the original application and we hear it in December.
Okay. Sounds good to me. All right. That's all I got.
Okay. Any other business may come before the committee for discussion? Not, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, I should mention, so I just got back from conference and I'm now on the Wisconsin County Code Administrators Ad Hoc Committee for short-term rental ordinance developments.
Good job.
So we'll see how that goes. We're behind the times a little bit on short-term rentals in Sawyer County. We tried to get to the forefront and legal counsel at that point said we couldn't administer it. Yet we come to find out that there actually are ordinances counties can adopt. So I'm looking at, probably going to be picking that up here in the next few months, next year and a half, potentially for development, but we need to get on board with a short-term rental ordinance as well as limitations for sizing based upon sewer systems.
And to further that point, Jay, yeah, we've been, just for the committee's knowledge, we've been working with Jay on this issue, and so we'll have some ideas on that as well.
Just keep you posted on that.
Yeah, and we have, Andy and Jay, we have residents contacting us on who they go to when they have complaints. I'm getting more of those.
And currently it's organized and licensed through the health department, and there needs to be a little bit more than just that. And I've had conversations with health department as well, so we'll be working on that diligently. Hopefully, it may take a year, may take 2 years, but we'll be working on it.
But I know they're sanitation. agents.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't the reason.
It wasn't.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Andy, you too, Andy, take care.
Yahoo! Yahoo! That was Main Street.